Are you looking for the most evil doll in the world? Look no further than the Labubu doll. There's something sinister about this doll, something that makes it stand out from the rest. It was designed in 2016 by a Japanese toy company, but its eyes seem to stare straight into your soul, and some say they can see a dark presence within them. But if you think that's creepy, just wait until you hear about the story behind it. According to legend, this doll is possessed by the demon Pazuzu, and there are even rumors that it's linked to satanic rituals. Some say the doll is so evil that anyone who owns one will eventually go insane. But is there any truth to these terrifying tales? Let's take a deep dive into the creepy origins of the Labubu doll and find out that, as we all know, dolls can be creepy as hell. Just think about the Chucky doll or the Annabelle doll, but the Labubu doll takes things to a whole new level. This doll is not just your average toy. And before we continue, if you don't want to get scared, then click away now. But if you do want to know more, then keep watching, because we're just getting started. This doll is not just any ordinary doll. Its appearance alone is enough to send shivers down your spine. It has an eerie and creepy look that makes it seem like it's possessed by something evil. And as if that's not enough, the doll has been linked to a number of disturbing internet rumors. Some people believe that the doll is cursed, while others claim that it's a gateway to the netherworld itself. So where did these rumors come from? Well, let's take a closer look at the history of the Labubu doll. As we all know, dolls have been around for centuries. They were originally created as a way to honor the dead and to ensure their safe passage to the afterlife. But over time, dolls have evolved and are now seen as nothing more than children's toys. However, some cultures still hold on to the ancient tradition of making funeral dolls. In fact, there is a small group of people who make these dolls to this day, and according to legend, one of these modern funeral dolls is known as the Labubu doll. This doll was created using ancient techniques and materials, and it is said to be able to communicate with the spirits of the dead. Of course, there is no evidence to support these claims, but that hasn't stopped people from believing in the power of the doll. In fact, many people are willing to spend big money to get their hands on the doll and to test its abilities. Now, we don't know exactly how these rumors started or how many people believe in them, but what we do know is that they have had a significant impact on the doll's popularity. The Labubu doll has become a sensation online, and people are obsessed with it. Some people buy the doll simply because they want to see if it's cursed, while others believe that the doll could help them communicate with their loved ones who have passed away. But what does the research say? Well, as we mentioned earlier, there is no evidence to suggest that the doll is cursed or that it can talk to the dead. However, there are a lot of people out there who claim to have experienced strange and unexplainable things when they've been around the doll. One person who believes in the power of the Labubu doll is a woman named Sarah. She bought the doll online without knowing anything about its history or its supposed powers. But soon after she brought the doll into her home, strange things began to happen. At first, it was just little things like objects moving around and doors opening and closing on their own. But then things started to escalate. Sarah began to hear whispers and footsteps when no one else was around. She also started having nightmares that always seemed to involve the doll. At first, Sarah tried to ignore these events. She thought that they were just figments of her imagination, or that she was simply letting her fear get the best of her. But as time went on, the events became more frequent and more intense. Sarah was starting to feel like she was losing her mind. That's when she decided to take action. She took the doll to a local priest who agreed to perform an exorcism. But as he began the ceremony, things took a turn for the worse. The doll suddenly came to life and began to attack the priest. He barely managed to escape with his life, and Sarah was left with the doll and her newfound fears. From that point on, Sarah was never the same again. She became withdrawn and paranoid, always fearing that the doll would come to life and harm her. And while we can't verify the authenticity of this story, it certainly paints a vivid picture of the kind of fear that the Labubu doll can evoke. And if you think that's creepy, just wait until you hear about the next story. Another person who claims to have had an encounter with the Labubu doll is a man named David. He didn't buy the doll online. Instead, he inherited it from his grandmother after she passed away. When David first got the doll, he didn't think much of it. He thought it was just an old antique that his grandmother had kept in her attic. But soon after he brought the doll downstairs, he started experiencing strange things. He would hear scratching sounds in the middle of the night, and he would often wake up to find scratches on his arms and legs. David tried to convince himself that these events were just coincidences. But when things escalated, he knew he had to do something. One night, he was awoken in the middle of the night by a scratching sound. When he turned on the light, he saw that the doll was moving on its own and that it had blood all over its hands. David screamed and threw the doll across the room. But as he watched it move back towards him, he knew that he had made a terrible mistake. The doll seemed to be coming alive right before his eyes, and it was moving faster than he could comprehend. In a panic, David grabbed a knife and stabbed the doll. But when he pulled the knife away, it was covered in blood. And as he looked down at the doll, he saw that it had no face. The skin had been ripped away, revealing nothing but bone underneath. At that moment, David knew he was dealing with something evil, and he ran out of the house as fast as he could. He hasn't looked back since, and he's terrified that the doll will come after him. Now, again, we cannot confirm the authenticity of David's story, but what we can tell you is that it's a terrifying tale that perfectly captures the kind of fear that the Labubu doll inspires. It's clear that this doll has a dark and sinister history, but what does the science have to say about it? Or are these stories nothing but really be something evil lurking inside this doll? Could there really be something evil lurking inside this doll? Or are these stories nothing but elaborate hoaxes? Well, let's take a deeper dive into the science of fear and see what experts have to say. According to Dr. Jeffrey S. Sachs, a professor of clinical psychiatry at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, our fears of dolls may stem from their uncanny resemblance to humans. He explains that when a doll moves or makes noises on its own, it triggers our fear response, even though we know that it's just a machine. This phenomenon is known as the uncanny valley, and it's been studied extensively by psychologists and neuroscientists. It refers to the feeling of eeriness that we get when we see something that looks almost human, but not quite. For example, when we see a robot that walks and talks like a human, we might feel uncomfortable or even disgusted. Even though we know that it's just a machine, our brains can't help but react to the uncanny resemblance. Some experts believe that this reaction is an evolutionary leftover from our primitive past. When we lived in tribes, it was important to be able to quickly identify members of our own group. If we couldn't tell who was friend and who was foe, we were more likely to be attacked or killed. So it's possible that our fear of dolls is a byproduct of this survival mechanism, but the science doesn't stop there. According to Dr. Brian Kenneth Gill, a psychologist and director of the Anxiety and Emotion Research Center at Webster University in St. Louis, Missouri, our fears of dolls may also be influenced by cultural factors. We grow up with stories of dolls that come to life and terrorize humans. From the Babadook to Chucky, we're conditioned to be afraid of dolls. And these fears can linger into adulthood. In addition, Dr. Paul J. Zak, a neuroscientist, may also play a role in our reactions to dolls, and professor of economics at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, suggests that our fear of the supernatural may also play a role in our reactions to dolls. When we see a doll that seems to be moving on its own, our amygdala, the part of the brain that processes emotions, activates, triggering the release of stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Now, none of these experts have specifically studied the Labubu doll, but their theories offer valuable insight into why we might be afraid of dolls in general. So what do you think? Are dolls really evil, or are our fears nothing but superstition? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video interesting, please subscribe to stay up to date on our latest videos. Thank you for watching.